A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta. Tonight the focus is on business process management, and WNS Holdings has been at the forefront of industry transformation. With AI and automation reshaping the BPM landscape, what does the future hold for this sector? Joining me today is Mr. Keshav Murugesh, Group CEO of WNS Holdings, to discuss the evolution of BPM and how businesses can stay ahead in the digital age.
Good morning, Mrs. Morris. I'm calling from the collections department.
Mr. Keshav, thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now, Leaders of Tomorrow.
Great pleasure, Ritwika, and thank you for having me.
So to begin with, business process management, BPM, as we broadly call it, it has evolved significantly over the years. Tell me, how do you see the future of BPM in India and globally?
So Ritwika, I think the first thing I should do is to let you know about the excitement I have for this industry. Okay. And we should also appreciate the great history that this industry really has had. It's been around for maybe close to 25 years. And it has been through three great transformations across the years. So if you recall, in the good old days of Jack Welch, and when the GE wanted to first get some processes thrown across the pond, as they say, to be delivered out of India, it came to India, but we created an industry out of processes that nobody in the West really wanted to do because they were commoditized, boring, repeatable, things like that.
Sure.
And I would say that was the first phase of India's, what we call in that time, BPO industry. Over the years, people realized that India actually was, actually brought a lot of business smarts to the table. First and foremost, a fantastic workforce, very diverse, probably much more equal opportunity employers than most other countries in the West. So I don't know if you know, but almost 50% of the employees in our industry actually are women. So for us, that made great business sense. And so phase two was all about value beyond cost. When people realized that India actually had some great people, great universities, could actually do higher quality work than just repeatable commoditized task. They started infusing some amount of technology, a little bit of data and analytics into it, and it went to value beyond cost. And that sustained us, I would say, for the next 10 years or so, and I think built the size and scale of this industry. The third phase became business transformation, as people realized that there's much more we could leverage. We could actually go after the tier 2, tier 3 locations, go after much more difficult processes. And as talent crunch was seen in the West, India became a very important delivery center for some of these locations. So that became the third phase. And the fourth phase is what we are seeing today, which is a lot more digital, transformation-led, technology-led, and AI-led kind of processes, which is the future of India's BPM industry. And throughout this transition, we have seen people respond to this in a different way, in different ways. So in day one, it was all about, was this industry, actually encouraging a party culture, because we worked mostly in night shifts in those days, and therefore people worked in night, and then everyone said this party culture. But then we created corporate governance models, we created discipline, we created policies, procedures, picked up people, dropped them back from the office, things like that. And then it slowly became an industry where everyone wanted to send their children to work in. And over a period of time, if you look at it, we have great companies in this industry that have now created humongous billions of dollars of revenue and market capitalization and employment out of a simple industry that started with maybe one or two processes that nobody in the West really wanted to do. So that's really the history of the industry. And going forward from here, I would say I'm very excited about the great opportunity for the industry now being unlocked by AI and generative AI. So while AI has been around and has been infused in many of our business models and processes for many years, the fact that generative AI is creating a completely new and transformational impact for us, which I will speak about a little later. But I think the whole idea is, with unlocking of the potential of generative AI, the ability for India and the business and digital companies to dramatically grow market share is now very high.
Fantastic. Of course, we'll touch on the industry and how tech has been impacting the industry as well. But just bringing back the focus to WNS. Now, it started off as a small captive unit, right, for British Airways, and now it has transformed into a global leader. So, if you could tell us, just take us through the journey, some of the key inflection points, that shaped its trajectory, and really what businesses can take away from this.
Sure. So WNS actually has a unique history in, I would say the whole history of global BPM. And, we are a 25-year-old company. We've just celebrated our 25 years recently. And if you look at it, we came out of a small captive of British Airways. And while we are very grateful for that relationship even now, the reality is when WNS was created out of this captive, it was hardly about 400 or 500 people. Right. It is just that we celebrate that history and that legacy that we had. And if you recall, if you go back in history, you will see that what was WNS at that point in time was a small company which essentially served the premier passengers of British Airways. And years later, a private equity firm bought that entity and thereafter made it third party. And since then, we have grown it dramatically, right? And there have been different inflection points in the history of the company. So that company with maybe 400 people at that point in time is today 63,000 people operating from 13 countries, 63 development centers, delivering close to 1.3, 1.4 billion dollars in revenue, and more importantly, creating huge impact for some of the greatest brands across the globe. In terms of business transition itself, we have seen it all. We've seen, the first model transition to the value beyond cost, business transformation. And today, if you look at how WNS is making progress, it is all around very solid understanding of business domains, because that is our core differentiator. The fact that we understand clients' business domains very well, the subdomains extremely well, and within that we have infused a lot of technology, our own IP, lots of technology partnerships, and then very strong capabilities on data and analytics, and combining all of this together to create great actionable insight for our customers. So obviously the customer is benefited because they realize that we probably understand their businesses as well, if not better than them, because we have so many other customers who compete with them in the same field, and we understand that each customer actually has a differentiated strategy, right? And so our ability to leverage all of this, give them lower cost, a variable cost of operations, higher impact kind of services, much stickier understanding of their end customers, and actionable insight that they can use to actually build stronger relationships with their clients is very high. And therefore, our great focus today is on looking at the whole GenAI wave as an opportunity and not a threat. We believe that it is a tailwind for us and for the industry for the long term. And we believe, again, because of the opportunity of GenAI, our addressable market, which today is probably 25 to 30%, because if you look at any Gartner or external kind of survey, you will see that hardly 25% of the industry is penetrated from a technology, digital, and operations point of view, which means there's a 75% white space or total addressable market that's now available. Sure. We are now going after that by making these investments. So it's a very exciting future for us for the long term.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. In conversation tonight with Mr. Keshav Murugesh, Group CEO of WNS Holdings. So, Mr. Keshav, as you might know, our show is watched by a lot of small business owners, MSMEs, startup founders. And the theme for our show this season is powering entrepreneurs for the global stage, because we believe that, MSMEs today in India, they are aspiring to go global, but they might lack resources or the talent, or maybe in terms of facing challenges like regulations. What would your advice be, for businesses that are looking to scale, not just in India, but, in different parts of the world?
So Ritwika, that's a great question, but I think the first observation I would have for all these MSMEs is that all of us who are today seen as successful companies also started like that, right? So we came from a similar ilk, we had the same experiences. So I think the first thing we should recommend to anyone is have that big vision. Sure. Right? You should have a vision of success, and you must be very clear that you will have very, very difficult times and lots of proof points along the way. But if you're hit down or struck down, don't remain lying on the ground. Stand up again, because all of us have been through that first experience. Yeah. The second thing I would say is that have a differentiated kind of strategy. Going with a Me Too strategy similar to what everyone else has is not going to give you a differentiated kind of appreciation by your customer base or all your stakeholders, even your own employees. So thinking through very carefully an original idea and then investing behind that is critical. Third thing I would say is focus a lot on your employees. Make sure that first of all, you create what is called the DNA of the right employee for your company. Like if you ask me at WNS, I know exactly what is the DNA of a successful WNS employee. Now, the same person may not be very successful at some other company, or if I bring somebody else from some other company into WNS, they may not have the same experience. But our DNA is clear because everyone in the company understands it. So again, appreciating that, and then after that person delivers and settles down, really investing behind in terms of upskilling, reskilling, constantly helping them understand that the game is changing, every single day, and that the only reason they exist is because of their customer, right? The fourth thing I would say is, have a very strong commercial model, right? Because a lot of people create businesses and then hope that as a result of creating something and being relevant to one or two customers, the whole market will relate to it. But market disruptions take place every day. So constantly innovating and constantly coming up with new and interesting models, as a result of which you are able to deliver on revenue goals, profit goals, and cash goals is going to be critical. And finally, have very strong industry affiliations, right? So I think these are the 4 or 5 things that I would say has generally made every small company over a period of time be successful. And then once they become big, again, behave like a small company. That's also going to be important.
That's very interesting. So as the group CEO of WNS, tell me, how do you ensure that the company stays ahead of the curve?
First and foremost is our domain knowledge is critical for us. That's our core differentiator. So making sure that we walk the talk in terms of understanding every domain and subdomain that we work in very intimately, and giving comfort to our clients that they can trust us because we know their business better than probably they would know because of the unique experiences we have across different customers. That is critical. The second thing is constantly infusing technology into the mix through partnerships, through IP. So for example, if there is any technology that is core to WNS, we will want to own the IP, right? Sure. Otherwise, we will have partners, we will have, be part of an ecosystem, things like that. But technology has become extremely important for us, and we, focus a lot on that. We invest a lot on talent and talent management programs. So I think one of the best programs at this company is the talent management program at leadership level and at a day-to-day run level as well. And then, finally, I would say, constantly coming up with new offerings, right, is critical for us. So if you look at the new WNS, it is all about, working with the right partners, building on those IPs, and coming up with scalable, programs and projects, as a result of which, for our clients, we are able to go with very interesting commercial models, which are not input-based, but much more, outcome-based. Sure. And around all of this, I think maintaining the culture of the company is critical. So if you ask me, the values of WNS have not changed in 15 years. They're the same. Right? We call them the circle of values. And when I tell you the words, you'll understand that everyone relates to it, the market relates to it. Client first, integrity, respect, collaboration, learning, excellence. These are words that everyone understands. It goes into our entire reward recognition program, and we celebrate these words. And the customer ultimately sees it, and that's what delivers for us higher growth, higher momentum, excitement in the company, and people wanting to come back to work for us every single day.
Wonderful. Speaking of technology, digitization, AI, automation, they have impacted industries across the board, right? Tell me, especially when it comes to smaller businesses, who perhaps do not have the budget or do not have the resources, to really adapt AI into their services or automation, so what sort of low-cost, high-impact solutions would you recommend in that scenario?
That's a great question, actually. Actually, if you look around, you will see that a lot of these companies have a huge potential, first of all, to add on very strong mentors, to help them with thinking through some of these issues. Now, this is one issue. Having mentors who have had the experience and who have, genuine ideas to help them navigate all of this is an advice I would give to, startup entrepreneurs and things like that. The other is, in all these technology areas and platform areas, you will always have all these great companies having a kind of a free model or a partnership model that allows all these companies to experiment and then decide which is the right technology that they want to go after. Again, I would encourage them to participate in these kind of programs. The third is belong to some industry forums, again, like I said earlier, and just participate in core programs related specifically to their industry. Right? Sure. So, if you are an MSME in a particular area and you want to know more about, how to navigate some specific areas, there are industry bodies that have programs to help you with all of these things. And finally, keep on focusing on having that differentiated idea and the right, talent base around you. These are the 4 or 5 things I would say. And it is common for any business, whether you're big or small, because I know many big businesses who forgot their way somewhere along the way, didn't follow these rules, and are today small businesses.
Right. Speaking of the BPO sector in India, there is a common, what do you call that? People believe that AI may impact jobs in the sector. I want to know your perspective on that. And in that scenario, how important would be skilling and reskilling and upskilling for the workforce and for the businesses as well, for their employees?
So every technology across the last 25 years, every ecosystem change across the last 25 years, every economic, problem that has happened, whether and beyond that, COVID, Brexit, Asian crisis, whatever, has always impacted, people in some format or the other.
Sure.
At the start. But the reality is, smart companies, smart economies, smart people find ways and means to leverage all of it and create a tailwind out of it. So while it obviously will impact people in the short term, in the long term, it actually creates more employment. So if you look at the last 25 years, any one of these incidents that I spoke about, starting from Y2K all the way to RPA, go to AI, machine learning, each time, we were told it will probably be the decline of the industry, the death knell of the industry, people won't be needed, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, each time in the short term, people had to shift and make changes in terms of what they had to do. But over a period of time, those jobs, were taken over by automation, but they evolved and moved to much bigger things. And overall, the growth has only increased. Yeah. So again, from my point of view, I actually think that the core to focus on is what will this AI and generative AI models do to our industry, right? I told you before, 25% only of our industry is penetrated. This change is very exciting because it is now going to allow us to go after that other 75%. So while, maybe across the industry 100,000 jobs may arguably be lost, the reality is if you go after a larger addressable market, those 100,000 will be replaced by significantly larger number of jobs. And if you then look at the guidance coming from the digital and technology companies, from the digital technology AI companies like us today, we're all talking about growth. coming back in terms of last quarter, the next quarter, and for the future as well. So all of this growth will ultimately create, new jobs, but it'll be a different quality of job, I would say.
Right, fantastic. So India is looked at as a BPM powerhouse. Tell me, what sort of policies or initiatives would you like to see to further strengthen its position?
So first and foremost, anything that drives talent management, talent retention, upskilling, reskilling is critical, for the country. And I think the government understands it. They work closely with bodies like NASSCOM and are driving this Future Skills program. And it's amazing because the government has consistently supported the industry very strongly because they understand that close to 340 billion is contributed by this industry. 12% of GDP comes from this industry, and therefore I would say there's a very strong participation and collaboration between government and industry in this area. If you look at all the policies that have been announced in the last so many years, you will see that the Prime Minister himself takes a lot of interest in this industry. We have an extremely smart, IT minister who is all the time, providing support. And what is amazing is government has always introduced interesting, kind of models only to support and not clamp down or put any controls on this industry, and also created very proactive models even from the finance ministry or from the IT ministry in order to encourage these small and medium enterprises of this country. So I would say we just want to see more of it, and we want to see policies that will encourage much more IP creation, much more innovation-led and value-driven, kind of programs from the industry.
Fantastic. And finally, Mr. Keshav, tell me, what is next for WNS? What is your long-term vision?
Well, the next for WNS continues to be growth. We think there's a superlative tailwind that is available to the industry and therefore to WNS. We think we have the right of way to grow and come back very strongly from 2026, and therefore what many years ago was work never stops and we never sleep is all about we nurture specialists today. So that's the future of WNS.
Fantastic. It was lovely chatting with you, Mr. Keshav. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.